What's going on, everybody? Appreciate you tuning in. A little post-draft kind of reaction to everything that we saw. There's a few things that I want to dive into and talk about. Got to talk about how the Cardinals did. Really good draft. Break down some of the pieces that they're able to kind of bring in here to Arizona. We got to talk a little bit about Cam Skattebo getting drafted, obviously, and kind of getting his opportunity now with the Giants. But the first thing we got to talk about is what everyone's talking about, which was the surprise of this year's NFL draft, and it is going to be the talking point you are going to hear on every sports talk show for the next week. What in the world happened with Shedeur Sanders? Have a lot of thoughts on this, and you see so many people kind of making suggestions that this has got to be about his dad Dion and kind of him putting a target on his son's back, or him making all this extra noise. And there's so many reasons of things that people are saying could be what happened and had everything to do with this conspiracy and not kind of what was on the tape and what was on the field. And I tend to think it's a combination of a lot of things. One, I think collectively teams looked at this year's quarterback draft class and said, it's not that good. On top of the fact they're looking at what's coming down the pipe next year, and they're saying next year's draft class is going to be really good. So if we want to take a quarterback and draft him, we're probably better off waiting until next year and seeing if we can get Arch Manning or get some of these other guys that are coming out that are going to be, franchise projecting altering type quarterbacks. And there wasn't really a lot of those in here. Cam Ward, and then there was this drop off of what everyone kind of expected. So I think the huge part of it was he was a big name, and his name was bigger than his talent. And once teams dove into kind of the tape, they basically just said, I don't really think this guy is as good as the hype, and it's not really as much of, it's not as worth of it. So he starts falling because of that. We've all seen how many reports came out that he had some of the worst pre-draft interviews that some scouts said they had ever had, regardless of if it was for the draft or not. They just said, he was getting torn apart. I think he's very authentic. I think every time you see him talk, he's very true to himself. And he's an extremely confident guy, and he's got a resume that backs it up. And I think sometimes that rubs people a little bit the wrong way. And I also think there was an element of when you go into these interviews, a lot of times, if teams are unsure about you, they're more looking for a reason not to pick you than they are to pick you. And so you can't give them that opportunity. And sometimes you kind of just got to do the dance, the music that they set. And that's not the way that the Sanders family kind of operates. And I think this is a little bit of a repercussion of that. So he falls a little bit because of that. I think a lot of owners and a lot of teams, as you see, really didn't like the way that Dion talked about the whole situation come in, saying that that they might pull an Eli Manning and dictate which teams that they go to because he didn't want them going to a bad situation. And if you have the leverage to do that as a dad, of course you want to put your son in the best situation. And if you're Shedeur, of course you want to go to the best situation that you can possibly be in, where you can develop and you can also have an opportunity to play, and there's the right management, the right pieces. You don't want to end up somewhere like, Cleveland, where he ended up going. Here's the problem. They didn't have nearly as much leverage as Eli did. Eli was a guy that was projected a top 5 pick, had the talent, had the pedigree, had everything to back it. When you have that much cachet, you can throw it around a little bit and you can control some things. People weren't sure. Shedeur was like the 35th ranked prospect coming out. That's not a lot of leverage. That means that every team's going to have a chance to pick you and probably pass, and then coming back around, maybe they get you the second time. And if you're trying to say, I'm going to determine who it is, that's a guy that's a red flag and you can move off of. That doesn't sound like a guy that we have to take despite that. And you hear about it all the time. Your distraction can't outweigh your production. There's a lot of distraction with Shedeur. A lot of it, I would say, not his fault. Comes with the territory of his dad and how flamboyant his dad is. And he's never done anything wrong. He's not a guy that gets in trouble. He's a guy that there's hardly ever any controversy or anything like really around him. The biggest controversy he has is him flexing his Rolexes and everything at like opposing crowds, or when he had a small kind of get into the face of Colorado State's quarterback's face after they had played in their Rocky Mountain Showdown. And that's two rivals talking trash. I don't really look at that as a huge red flag to me. That's kind of pretty normal. But for better or for worse, his dad ran his mouth a lot. And the potential and talent and the draft, grade on his son couldn't quite back up everything that he had said, I feel like. And a lot of teams looked at it and said, it's a lot of problems that come up with this guy, especially if we draft him. He is a bit of a celebrity, and we're probably looking at him as our backup quarterback. And one of the last things that you want is a celebrity backup quarterback, because the moment something goes wrong with your starter, the fan base is craving for that guy. You have to answer questions all the time about him and stuff, and they become a distraction within the team as well. Again, it's not really Shedor's fault. It's not, but it's also a business, and there is an element, a big element. It's not, teams aren't just interested in winning. They're also interested in making money. It is a business. It's an entertainment business, and part of winning also is the culture of the team. So there's a lot of things that go into it. I mean, there's a lot of things that you're getting more than just the football player when you draft Shedeur. And so a lot of teams were willing to pass on it until finally he gets selected by the Browns late in this draft, as he ends up going with the 144th overall pick in the 6th round. They make a trade to kind of go and get him, which is also what I said like before, that this is one of the last teams that you'd want to go to. Just historically as a franchise, the last good quarterback that they really kind of had rolling was Baker Mayfield, who they decided they were going to move off of, and now he's turned into a Pro Bowler and a guy that, you can lean on a little bit down there in Tampa. Oh, by the way, this wasn't the only quarterback that the Browns drafted in this draft. They also went out and got Dylan Gabriel, a Heisman candidate out of Oregon, a guy that most people didn't think projected to the NFL, a guy that a lot of people thought was going to be like a 7th round draft pick or go undrafted. I covered him when he was playing for Oklahoma before he transferred to the Ducks. It's a guy that reads the field really well, but he doesn't have a terribly strong arm. He doesn't throw it deep almost ever. It's just check downs and kind of can read the defense a little bit. He's undersized. There's not a lot of things that you look at that get you super excited about his prospect as an NFL quarterback. And he still went ahead of Sanders. They also, by the way, still doing with everything that comes with Deshaun Watson and the wild headache of what's going on there. And they're paying him. I mean, they backed up the Brinks truck for him, and he is guaranteed a lot of money right now. They also signed Joe Flacco this offseason, who's normally like a guy that is such a solid backup quarterback and kind of a guy that can still throw it, but super old, not going to really challenge for the starting job, but a great guy to have in that room. They also have Kenny Pickett, who was with Pittsburgh and a guy that was a high draft pick as well. And, some people really kind of thought he had some prospects. So you have these 3 young guys and then an absolute headache in Deshaun Watson and then a solid backup in Joe Flacco for 5 quarterbacks in that room, which is more than what you normally would have on a roster. So does that mean Sanders now is going to be a practice player, or is he going to make the team? Because you're not probably carrying 5 quarterbacks. That would be wild. Maybe that's a blessing in a blessing in disguise for him, that he ends up either beating out a bunch of guys and proving people wrong, and he has to, he proves it in camp, and then they put him, in a nice spot in the depth chart, and he's able to learn a little bit. Or they don't want to deal with the headache and everything. They decide to cut him, and then he can actually pick what team he wants to go to, and he will have an opportunity playing somewhere that's a much better fit and kind of opportunity, because the Browns ain't it. That is a rough franchise right now to play for, with all the money they got tied up in Myles Garrett, all the money they got tied up in Watson, who doesn't look like he should be in the NFL at all anymore. and just an absolute franchise that has continually gotten in its own way and has never shown the ability to develop a quarterback. And it's just an awful situation for Sanders. It's worst case scenario for everything to kind of manifest to this point. So it's bad. Like, I feel really, really bad for him in the whole situation. Again, an ounce of it self-inflicted. Most of it, I feel like, is circumstances with what's going on with his dad and around the league and everything like that. I think a large portion of it also is the tape didn't help him out that much. This was the weak class, and everyone looked at what's coming down the pipe next year and said, I'd rather not worry about it this year and then go after one of these guys next year, because there's going to be a few coming here into the draft next year. All right, let's talk a little bit about the draft that the Cardinals had. I thought it was awesome. I thought they knocked it out of the park in just about every situation, every pick. I loved, especially, like, Walter Nolan's a great pick there at 16, a guy that they needed in a position that they needed, and he's a great talent. I mean, that's about where he was projected to go, but getting a guy like that can rush the passer a little bit, and then that was the biggest hole on this team last year, was the defensive line. And you can tell by the way that they drafted that they knew it and they were trying to address it. But to get Will Johnson in the second round is unreal. There's no way that guy should have slipped that far down there. He was incredible. He was projected the 10th overall pick. And I get it. He's had some injury problems, but this guy is awesome. And to be able to, if he can stay a little healthy, to pair him with Budda Baker and to put him on the backside of that defense, to get him in the second round is the steal of the draft, in my opinion, because it's such a high opportunity. And, like, you just got to hope that he stays a little bit healthy. And if he does stay healthy, he's almost a guaranteed hit. And a guy that you know is going to be able to shore up one half of the field, and he's going to be awesome for him. All of a sudden, their backside of the defense looks great, and you got a stud up front, and you're pairing him with a long-time seasoned vet that's going to be able to coach him up a lot as well. And so they've got some pieces now that look on the defense where you are getting excited about it. And then they hammer the defense with the next two picks, getting Jordan Burch out of Oregon and getting Cody Simon out of Ohio State, also at linebacker. So you get another edge rusher and you get another linebacker, and it's just all D-line. Their first four picks all go to defense, and then you come back with your fifth pick and you get another corner out of Ohio State. And so that room all of a sudden has got some depth and some talent in there as well. So, I mean, it's obvious what they looked at on this team and said, we need to get better at. The D-line was awful, and Budda Baker had to make up so much. He had to cover up so much with this defense. It's never a good thing when your safety is leading you in tackles. So now you're able to add a lot of talent in there and a lot of youth and mix things up. And now you got options on the outside. It's exactly what this team needed to do. Now, they also needed some O-line help, and they tried getting that. If I do think that there was a reach or a miss, Hayden Connor, they needed an O-lineman. That's reaching up there a little bit. I mean, this guy, he was ranked 19th as an offensive guard coming out. He was 260 as a prospect. There's a lot of talent on that Texas line, too, and it's not like he was kind of left on an island a little bit, and it's not the best tape in the world. It was a position of need, so you can't kill them for this pick, but, like, I didn't love it. Like, it wasn't something that I really looked at and was super excited about. I thought there was better options out there, or just get a guy in free agency if you were going to go that route. But that's the one pick that I look at that I'm not crazy about. And then to finish it off with Crawford, another safety to add him to that room, all of a sudden, again, of all your picks, only one on the offensive line, and then it's just all defense. And that's exactly what this team needed to do. It's not as sexy as getting a new wideout, which they do need some help in that room. It's not as sexy as maybe rolling the dice and seeing like, hey, like maybe we should look at some of these quarterbacks or something like that. I don't know what's going on with Murray and kind of the interest on if they want to move off with him. But man, sometimes the best moves that you can do in the draft are the ones that are not sexy. Getting the O lineman, getting the D lineman, those are guys that typically really set the tone and can change things for your franchise. You got to get a quarterback right, and then you got to get your line right. And after that, you can just start plugging in some pieces and making it work. I don't know if they got the quarterback right at this point. There's a lot of questions around Murray, but at least now you feel much more comfortable and much better about what they're doing with their line, because their D-line was awful last year. Their O-line was bad, below average, but now you at least feel like on defense we got an opportunity to be a lot better. And if they can just get to middle of the pack, like literally if they can make that jump, significant difference for this team and kind of the outlook and the projection of what they can do this year. So I thought it was a great draft for them. And it really is now going to make things interesting. Can they go out now and get a wide receiver in the free agency? Can they go out and get another offensive lineman? If they could do those two things, that's about the last couple pieces. And then becomes a make or break a year for Murray, because like I said, there are a lot of good quarterbacks coming out next year. And so if it doesn't work out with Murray this year, definitely feels like that could be the last opportunity for him. And then they go out there and they hit the reset button a little bit. So, but it'll be fun now. They shored up a lot of spots that they needed to. Last thing I want to talk about, Cam Skattebo. Oh man, I really wanted my team to get him. I love this guy's tape and kind of the way that he projects to the league. He is so much fun, and like he's going to be awesome here in the next level. We kept talking about this when I had the pre-draft interview, talking with ESPN's Eli Letterman. We talked about like he just had to find the right fit, but he's a guy that can do it all. He's a guy that is just a great football player that you want to find a way to put him on the field. Unfortunately for him, I don't like this fit. Like, I don't really like him with the Giants for a few reasons. One, when you start looking at the Giants' depth chart at running back, they've got a couple guys in front of them that are going to be kind of pretty interesting. You still have Devin Singletary there, and Tyrone Tracy Jr. had a pretty good year. So you're going to have, I mean, I think he probably beats out Devin Singletary, but you're probably looking at maybe splitting carries at that point, which is fine. I mean, I think if you wanted to go, little thunder and lightning kind of opportunity there, a guy that's speed with Tyrone versus a guy that's got a little bit more power and will be a little bit more between the tackles and Cam, that's fine. I don't love the Giants offensive line, and I really don't love what they're doing right now at quarterback. It would have been, I just really was hoping he would go to a spot where they would have had either a good line and like someone that wanted to run the ball a lot, or at least a quarterback that does some things to create opportunities. Like if he had wound up in say, the Chargers, I would have loved that opportunity for him. Having Justin Herbert be able to kind of push the defense back a little bit and then be able to dump it off to Cam and kind of have him be that in between. I think he's going to see a lot of loaded boxes and a lot of things where people are saying, I'm not worried about Russell Wilson beating us. I'm certainly not worried about it if Jackson Dart ends up being a guy that they kind of put in here when the season inevitably is kind of in doubt a little bit. Jameis Winston a little bit more so. That'd be really fun because Jameis is just going to huck it deep to Malik Neighbors every time, and you're going to have to respect that. And so maybe that opens up more things, but it feels like I just wish he was going to a team that had figured out that had a quarterback situation figured out and one that had a better offensive line, at least one or the two. Instead, he's going to a team that I don't think really has either going for them. And that's tough. I don't know what kind of you do in that situation. I think he splits carries. I think he gets a little bit of opportunity. It's still awesome for him getting drafted. to still go in the 4th round right there. He fell a little bit. A lot of people thought that he'd be a late 2nd rounder, early 3rd, so maybe about 30 spots back from where he was kind of hoping to go. But still awesome moment for him. He's still one of my favorite players in college this last year to cover, and to see just an absolute highlight reel, and a guy that, he was a blast to watch play. And I can't wait to see how that translates to the NFL. I just wish he had a little bit better situation for him, because I don't love that one. There certainly would have been worse options out there. His situation isn't as bad as Shedeur's by any means, but there were ones out there that were better. So we'll see how it works out. We'll see if he can end up maybe winning the starting job. That's asking a lot over Tyrone, so we'll see. But I think he splits carries, and I think he ends up having a pretty good start to his career there. We'll see what happens afterwards. The Giants have shown they're willing to move off franchise running backs. They let go of a pretty good one that ended up having a great year over there for Philadelphia. So, that's tough. It has to do a bunch for the franchise, take a bunch of hits, a lot of carries, and then, they aren't willing to pay you. So, I don't know. I feel like there would have been better situations for him out there. You can't gripe. You still get drafted. You still are in a decent spot, but it was not an A+ landing spot for me. I would give it somewhere closer to about a C+. It's okay. Wish it could have been better. Wish it would have went to my team, but here we are. Let me know what you guys think. Do you like the fit for Cam over there with the Giants? What do you make of the whole Shedeur situation? Because that's going to be wild. I'd love to hear what you guys got to think about that. And then, let me know about the Cardinals as well, because I thought that was a great draft. Still some holes, still some work to do here in the offseason. But overall, a fun few days here with the draft. And now, sadly, we all got to wait a long time till we get a chance to talk some football again. But till then, catch y'all later.